And we have to click on something. All right, so we have a couple dates, and these dates are in your newsletter. And everybody read the newsletter? I was handed my what by our newsletter editor because I didn't read the dates. Yes,
I just didn't know what the date was.
I didn't know what the date was, so I emailed her. A couple of things coming up. This Sunday is the Fiddle Fest. And I see that Bill's here. Bill's organizing photographers for the Fiddle Fest up at Fleetwood. It's going from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening. We're really looking for somebody around the noon to the 6 o'clock hour. He's trying to schedule so that we're covered. And Bill, yeah, go ahead, Bill. Let everybody know what the hours are.
Hey, Bob. This is Bill. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, we're pretty much covered in the first part of the day. I should be able to get there around 4. I think we have 7 committed right now. Let me know what you think your hours are going to be, Bob.
Okay, you tell me what you need.
And it's quite okay if we have overlap.
Okay.
I'll be sending out details this week.
Okay. Now the information is in the newsletter, and they approached us and asked us if we could cover it and give them some photographs. And it's a fiddlers competition festival. We're going to have food trucks and so forth, and it's to support their the park system, I believe, up there in Fleetwood. So that's the 15th, which is this Sunday, right? Next thing is coming up would be the Ole Fair. And I don't think Bill's going to be here, or Jeff's going to be here. So Jeff is organizing photographers for the Ole Fair. That fair goes from the 18th to the 21st. And if you want to go up and spend the day or spend a couple hours and try to cover some of the events up there for them, that's been an annual event that we've photographed for many years. And then we give them the photographs and they use it for their PR.
Jeff needs to get them a.
Jeff will get you, if you get to him before the 18th, 20th, 21st, a tag, a volunteer tag, right? That'll get you in without paying a cost and things like that. So that's something that Jeff has organized for the past couple of years, and he's going to be in charge of that. And again, details are in your newsletter. The other thing is Halloween, okay, October 26th. From 12 o'clock to 4 here, that we're going to have our annual Halloween shoot. And the theme is Beetlejuice. We're going to have 2, maybe 3, depends, models. And that's been really, really nice and a lot of work. And a pumpkin, that's right. We have a professional pumpkin carver also. And we'll have dry ice and some other things and things set up. And that's been something that Kim set up for the last how many years, Kim? And it's really good. Last year, we didn't have as many participants, but she put in a lot of work. So if you go onto our Facebook page, and I think, Rick, you have a couple of examples up there, Medusa last year, it was a professional shoot. And this year's the theme is going to be Beetlejuice. So it's a studio setup where they set up studio lighting. We have semi-professional, professional, volunteer models, right? And Kim always does a good job. And she brings in her own equipment. All you have to bring is your camera, your manual, please, so that we don't have to figure out how to connect you to the flashes. And what else do they bring, Rick? Anything else that they should bring?
Cameras.
Yeah. So information on that will be in the newsletter also, right? One thing that I forgot to put in the newsletter, and we did this last year. We tried to do it last year, but we had a monsoon. I think we had about 10 inches of rain and it got rained out. It's a really good international horse trial competition. It's down in Roomaville area. It's called Plantation Fields. I will list some of the information. I'll give Ginnie some of the information. That's going to be on the 21st. Actually, it's 19th, 21st, and 22nd, I believe. I'll put those dates up on the Facebook page. It's really worth going to. They charge you $25 for parking per car. So if you carpool and you have 4 people in there, it's going to cost you $25 per car. But it's an international Olympic level competition. It's steep chase, so they run through the fields too, and you're allowed out in the fields to photograph it. So it's a really nice event. So that's down off of Route 82. I think it's Unionville area. It's called Plantation Fields. So I will put something in the newsletter, and also I'll post something on Facebook. I'm going to try to do that this year. I did it a couple of years ago, just driving by, stopped by, and I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known about this. So that's something with getting together. It's going to be an official, unofficial get together. Vince, you said you had some announcements? And anybody else who has announcements? I know I want to give one announcement for Jay. We're still looking for some member speaker topics. So if you're interested, or or you want to team up with somebody else, get in touch with Jay, because he's looking for speakers for the next year. Okay.
Thanks. Just very quickly, our first talk of the fall, September 16, Francesco Gola from Spain, I believe. Francesco is a fantastic photographer. He'll be talking on seascapes and long exposures. It should be really a great meeting, and he was kind enough not to charge us an honorarium for that, giving back to the community, quote. And an alert, October 28th is the black and white competition, the last competition of the year. You can start submitting now. Info's in the newsletter. The next newsletter will have more particular information, but it's been in the last few. So the deadline will be this Sunday, 2 weeks before that. So around October 14th. So start thinking about your black and whites.
I almost forgot. We have in the past couple of years, we've participated in the national interclub competition. I haven't signed this up yet. I was going to let it go, but I think it's worth at least signing us up. I think Vince, you reminded me a couple of times through emails. We'll need to organize it a little bit better than the past couple of years, but I can sign us up, and we can, post or submit up to 6 in each category. We don't have to submit 6. If you want to compete, you can send the images in. We usually pick them from our competitions, but we've been falling a little bit short in the black and white. I think we'll have some black and white this time. And we also participate in the color competition. We have participated in the nature also. If you're really interested in it, let me know and I'll sign us up and we'll continue on. But it's some work, and all we get back is a number. Okay, what our score was. We don't really get critiques like we get with our competitions. So I'll sign us up just in case we want to do it, but we don't have to, right? And if anybody wants to take over that competition, submissions and organizing, let me know. I've been doing it last year, right? Thank you. It's all yours. It's all mine.
Okay, I guess I need you to move that over there, right?
Take over. There's screen. You ready to share the screen?
Yeah. But I don't want all that. So for some reason it's Bob. I mean, Bill.
Everybody that's online, the best way to see this online is going to the top right where it says view and going down to full screen.
Maybe we could turn off one of the lights in here. Tell me if that's better for those of you who are in here. Can you see better? Yeah. Great. Okay, so I have some notes for myself. First was to make sure we're recording. It looks like we are. Thank you for choosing to spend your Monday night here. I did check the TV guide, and Monday Night Football starts at 8:15 with the Jets versus the 49ers. So if anybody leaves at that time, we'll know why. I am going to be giving you a number of different shortcuts and other types of tips that you may like to jot down. You don't have to. You can always watch this again. But just so you know that that's one of the things that I will be doing.
Can you all move this out of the way?
Oh, okay. Will it be on the recording then, or doesn't it matter? I don't think it matters. Okay. Are we good? Can you guys see everything up here? Thumbs up. Okay.
Hold on, one more thing.
He's doing one more thing.
All right, it's
The-
yours,
The,
all yours.
the way things happen around here is we've got the screen up there, we've got the screen right here, and we've got the controlling screen over there. So sometimes if I click on something, it might pop up over there and Bob's going to have to bring it back over here for me. So just be patient, and it might make a little sound. So we're not going to worry about that. So I'm Ginnie Lodge. I am a happy photographer, happy Photoshop user. I am not a professional photographer. So tonight I'm going to just be sharing things that I've learned as I've muddled my way through Photoshop. And I'm hoping that at least a few of the things I share tonight are something that will be useful to you. This is not a full Photoshop class. You could take probably an entire semester or 2 semesters to learn every in and out of Photoshop. That's why I call it tips and tricks, because it's just some things that I think you may not know, or you might know, but you might find helpful. Before I start, I have to point out there is more than one way to climb a tree or skin a cat, but I don't like to think about that. So climb a tree. You know, back in the day when I would drive my kids to school, one of the things I did to keep them sharp was I would ask them a math question to do mentally, and then they would tell me the answer, and then I would ask how they got it. And they all usually got it different ways, and from each other and from me. But we all came up with the same answer. So just so you're aware, there's always more than one way to accomplish something. So if I tell you something tonight and that's not how you always did it, well, we can just agree that that's fine. We can do it our own way if we want to. We can rejoice in that. I also know that I'm speaking to people with a wide variety of experience in Photoshop. He knows every in and out, he knows all the tools, he knows all the things. And so, you know, if I'm desperate, I can always ask Bob if something's not working. But I'm going to try to just give you some, like I said, some things that maybe could just help you out. Tonight, I'm going to be working in Lightroom Classic, which I actually should have opened, but I can open that now, and Photoshop 2024. This is not the light. This is what happens when you decide to update Lightroom right before. Yeah, let's just make sure my pictures are in here. Generally, almost all the time when I'm working on a photograph, I open it first in Lightroom, and then I will open it over into Photoshop if necessary, and then I'll pop back, save it, go back into Lightroom, and export it from Lightroom into whatever format I need it for, whatever size, whatever, you know, right from Lightroom. So actually, I'm going to start in Lightroom. I actually have some bonus Lightroom tips for you. You get these for free. You didn't even have to pay extra. Oh, well, they have to give you these little doohickeys here. Okay. So starting here in Lightroom, one of the things that I always do when I open a new, when I sign into Lightroom, it's something on a new computer or whatever, I go over here in my develop panel and I turn on something called solo mode. Because otherwise, as you open each of these different panels, they all are, you have to scroll down, 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 up, 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 down, down, down to see what's going on. And that's a lot of things to have to deal with. And then you have to close them all. So if you instead, down here, right click down in this blank area and change it to solo mode, then only one of those panels will be open at a time. And as soon as you go to open another one, the one you were in is going to close and be out of your way. Very helpful. The other thing is, if you know that you particularly work over on certain things over here in a certain order, like I always start in the basic panel. But then I usually go from there down into detail and then into the color mixer, but they're not in that order. So I can personalize that again by right clicking down here in this empty space and click on customize develop panel. And then I can drag and drop these to whichever order I want. So now detail is second, because that's what I'm used to doing second. And I can also, if there's one of these panels that I just never ever use, I can uncheck this box and then that panel will not be showing. But it's not like I can't go back in there and check it again if I want to. I might have had to say save. I think I had to say save. Look at the save thing there. Okay, I'm going to put detail up here. Come on, drag them up there. And I have to say save. Okay. Oh, I need to relaunch. Forget it. Relaunch later. We're not going to worry about that. I didn't go through this whole thing at home and rechange my home one to figure out what was going to happen. Another fun little thing you can do here, and you can turn that AC back up again a little bit because now there's a lot of people in here. I mean, down. Whatever makes it cooler. Is everybody else getting a little warm with all these people in here?
Good.
Yeah, you're perfect, of course. I know. Okay. Did you know that you could make the top of your Lightroom, you could personalize that? Well, you can. So if you're in Windows, you're going to go to the edit menu. If you're in Mac, I think it's actually the Lightroom Classic menu. And you're going to go down here to this identity plate setup. And what you can do here, right now, it's the Adobe ID. So see how it says LRC Lightroom Classic and my name. I could change it to be the Lightroom Classic so that it just says Lightroom Classic, or I can personalize it and I can make it say my name, and I can also change the font of these things over here and the size of these. So let's say I prefer, you're not going to have the font that I like. Let's say I want Calibri instead, and I want it to be bigger because I'm getting old and I can't. Oh, that is way too big. Not that old. I could make it a little bit bigger. You know, you can change it to whatever you want. And if you were actually going to be presenting to a group and you were going to be using your own Lightroom, you could put your name up here and it would say that instead of that regular Lightroom Classic thing or the Adobe ID. All right, we're going to just cancel that. You can even actually upload a logo, which I did try and it just didn't fit very well, so I gave up on that. 3 more little quick tips in Lightroom. If you're working in Lightroom and you want to see the picture you're working on without any distractions, you can use the lights out, which is the L key. And if you hit L once, it sort of dims the things around it. And if you hit L again, or on mine, it goes black. On this one, it goes gray because of the theme on this particular one. And then if you hit L one more time, it's going to bring it back. That has to do with this background. If I make this a dark gray back here, let me see what happens. No, it's still that way. I guess I'd have to change that. The other thing you can do, again, if you want to really see that image without the things around it, if you want to just press the F key, it's going to bring it to full screen. You can see it, really take a look at it, and then go back with the F key again. Oh, I did it too many times. And you're back here. Now, it would have been nice to me as a teacher. I know I should have given you a handout. I should have printed all this out ahead of time, but I didn't. So you're going to have to write it down, or you can watch the video again if you want to. But that's enough for Lightroom tips. So you came here for Photoshop, so that's what we're going to do next. Before we go from Lightroom to Photoshop, there are a couple settings you want to check in Lightroom first. If you're in Windows, you're going to go to Edit and you're going to go to the Preferences. In Mac, I believe it's the Lightroom Classic menu and Preferences. And you want to go to this third tab for External Editing. And you can see here that this knows that there's Photoshop on this computer. And so it's giving me the settings. It's for Photoshop 2024. When you open a photo in Photoshop from Lightroom, it's either going to open as a TIFF or a PSD. TIFF is a larger file, but other programs can handle TIFFs too. PSD is not as large of a size in terms of taking up space on your hard drive. But you can decide whichever of those you want. You also, I'm not going to give you advice on which color space. I use the ProPhoto RGB. You want to be at 16 bits for sure, and 300 resolution with no compression. And then you want to just say okay to that. So you set that up.
Good.
Yeah.
What's that extension? Is that an Olympus extension or?
Yes, this is on my Olympus. That's the Olympus raw file.orf. Yeah, David.
If you work in TIFF, does it save the layers?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because I actually have that down here. Either PSD or TIFF will save all your layers. And so if you open that again in Photoshop, all your layers are going to be there. Once you have those settings ready to take care of, you will be ready to open a photo from Lightroom into Photoshop. However, I'm not quite ready to do that because I want to show you some settings in Photoshop. So I'm going to pop back over here to Photoshop. This is a little bit of a funny mouse. And just tell you a few things over here. So if you haven't used Photoshop very much, one of the cool things is when you first open it up, there's the home screen where you can see pictures that have been opened recently and so forth, but there's also this learn screen. And here you can learn how to do different things, and it'll open up right in the app. And some of them have like a little video, and they'll tell you what to do next, and you can actually step through it. So if you learn that way, it's good to know that that's there. My biggest tip on Photoshop is if you're not sure how to do something, you all do this anyway, you need to Google it. And you make sure you have the word Photoshop in your question, and you're going to be able to find it, how to do it. I would highly recommend that you go to an answer from Adobe if you can, as opposed to from, Joe Schmo, Photoshop expert down the street, who really can tell you whatever, like I'm doing, But I don't love watching videos. I'd pretty much rather see something written out as an example, but other people like doing it as a video. It all depends on, which side of the brain you use. So here's some things you may want to check right here in Photoshop. And just to make sure that I can get all of them, I'm just going to open an image. This is actually a JPEG. I'm going to come back to this later. This is a JPEG I took 12 years ago. I want to show you what you could do to actually improve this even in Photoshop. Here's a couple things I like to change. Okay, thank you. This is what happens when you update the version right before the class. First thing I like to really do in Photoshop, I think I've already done it here, but I'm going to show you where it is. Again, in your edit menu, going down to preferences, and in your tools preferences. Over here on the left, we're in tools. I really like to turn on this one right here, zoom with scroll wheel. I basically work with my right hand on the mouse and my left hand by the keyboard. And I like to be able to zoom into my picture with the scroll wheel. So wherever I place my cursor on here and start scrolling, it's going to zoom to that spot. And I can zoom in and out so much more easily than using like bracket keys or some other keys to get me to zoom. I also want to, if things all of a sudden start to look a little wonky for you, if you go in here to this window menu and workspace, there's a lot of different workspaces here. So you may want to just go in here and click photography so that you're in a workspace that has the things that you're most likely to use. There's something that comes up here, and fortunately it's not turned on right now, but just in case it is turned on for you, it's called Rich Tooltips. And again, it's over here in the preferences under tools. And you're going to see it right up here. These rich, actually it does have it checked right now. Show rich tooltips. So what that is when I go over here on top of one of these tools, I get this little flyout menu, which to me is very annoying. And it has a video included that shows you how to use the tool. So if you don't know how to use anything, that might be helpful. If you do know how to use them, they're going to cover up your picture and it might be annoying. So again, you want to go into those preferences down there and you want to just go ahead and turn that off. I leave on the regular tooltips because they're not so annoying. If you mouse over something, it just puts up a little small, I don't even see it now. There, it calls it the polygonal lasso tool. So there you go. One more thing is this new feature, this contextual toolbar. You cannot dock this here. Sometimes it's in the way. I'm always moving it out of the way. I'd like to be able to see it or not see it when I choose to see it or not see it. You can do that here in the window, in this window menu. Down here at the bottom, it says contextual taskbar. You can turn it off. Now it's gone. Then you can hit window and you can turn it back on again if you want to. However, that's kind of annoying because that's a few different steps. So I have a tip for that too. For this, you can go into edit and go down here to your keyboard shortcuts. And the contextual taskbar is actually in the window because it's in the window menu, remember? So it's in the window here. And right way down near the bottom, here it is, contextual taskbar. If you click that, you have a little spot right here where you can put a shortcut. One key that you could hit to make it come or go. And I changed it on mine to F8. Going to give me a warning because by default, F8 is an info. It shows info. I never use that. So I'm going to assign that instead to the contextual taskbar. It says here, it's warning me, if you accept this, it's going to take it away from info. And I say, let's just do it. So I'm going to hit accept and OK. And now if I hit F8 on the keyboard, it goes away. And if I hit F8 again, it comes back. So there's a tip for that. This thing. I'm going to end up dropping this on the floor or something. Okay. All right. Just a quick little keyboard shortcuts that you might want to know. All the keyboard shortcuts that you use anywhere else in all the other programs on your computer work on Photoshop, right? Control C is copy, Control V is paste, Control A selects all, or Command if you're on a Mac, Command or Control A. What's that? Control Z is undo. Thank you. That's very important. I do have that here on my list. That undoes something. Control Y will redo what you just did. We already did the scroll with scroll, zoom with scroll wheel. If you do select something with one of your selection tools, let's say I select this part of the picture and I get the marching ants. I do Control C, that copies. I do Control V, that pastes. And you notice over here on the layers menu that it pasted that on a new layer. So when you paste, you're pasting what you copied or pasted onto a new layer, which is nice because layers are very important in Photoshop, which we're going to get to in a minute. If you want to redo that same selection, I'm going to go back on the background layer. If you want to redo a selection you just did, if you hit Control and Shift and D, it should have redone. Oh no, look, it gave me this. Interesting. Let's try that again. I didn't try that on this computer, huh? That's Windows. I don't know why that's not working. Let me try this again. I'm just going to select something. Maybe I have too many things in between. Okay, to deselect, let's do that first of all. To deselect, Command or Control D. To reselect, it should be Shift Control D. It's not working. I don't understand why that's not working here because it was working on mine.
That's Because you're on a different system.
I was on Windows at home.
This is the Dell command.
Oh, it's a Dell command. So if it's a Dell command, then you can't use it. Forget that. Okay. If you would like to make a copy of the particular layer that you're on, which I sometimes do when I open an image in Photoshop, and I don't want to take any chances with that bottom layer. If you just use Command J, unless it's a Dell command, it should create a copy. See how there's another copy up there in my layers panel? So now I've got the background and a copy of the background. So now I can do whatever I want to that one, and the background stays pristine. Nothing gets changed. Let's take this background copy and do something that I don't usually do, but let's.
Does everybody know what layers are?
I'm not sure. Well, we'll be talking about what layers are. I'm going to make an adjustment just to this layer for fun. I'm going to make it brighter. Now, I generally don't make an adjustment right to an image. I use an adjustment layer, but I'm changing that background copy. Now, what you're going to notice here, oops, I just undid what I just did. Let me do that again. I'm going to make this brighter and lower the contrast, raise the contrast, and say, okay. So now you see this middle layer right here, that background copy, I made an adjustment to that. And why is that adjustment not happening right here in the middle? Because up here, there's another layer that has that selection on it. If I want to hide that layer, I can hit that eyeball, and that hides that layer, and that brings that layer back. If I have a bunch of layers and I only want to see the bottom layer, I can hold Alt or Option and click the eyeball on the bottom layer, and it turns everything else off and just shows me that bottom layer. Hold Alt or Option and do it again, and it's going to show me the other layers. We'll see this in some of my other examples. This is just a quick example here. One of my favorite, I'm going to just put a blank layer on top of here for fun, so that I can show you about the brush. And this is true for any brush, whether it's a brush to paint on color or it's a brush to erase or something like that. When you're using a brush in Photoshop, if I zoom in, you see the brush right now is pretty small, right? I'm in my brush, and up here I see some things about brushes. I can sort of change the size of the brush here. And if I put it over here, I see, oh yeah, you made it bigger, or you made it smaller, and you put it over here, and you can make it harder or softer. And you can also use a keyboard shortcut for that. So if I want to make my brush bigger, I can use the right bracket key and see how it's getting bigger. And the left bracket key makes it smaller. And you can make it softer and harder by using the shift with the right, well, we think, maybe not with Dell, with the right bracket key and the shift with the left, but you can't see what's happening exactly. So my tip on this is, because I'm right-handed, now Bob's left-handed, so he doesn't really like this tip very much, but if you have the mouse in your right hand and you use these two fingers on Control and Alt or Command and Option and hold them down, if you drag, what is happening? Why is that not working? Oh, yes. If you use your right mouse button, if you drag to the right, your brush gets bigger. If you drag to the left, your brush gets smaller. If you drag up, your brush gets softer. If you drag down, your brush gets harder. And you just have complete control over this brush. To me, it's so much better than hitting a key. Okay.
It was Command and Option or Control?
Yes, Control and Alt or Command Option, depending on whether you're Mac or whether you're Mac. So I'm going to just take this top layer, hold Shift, hit this layer, and throw all of those in the trash and get back to my original. And we're just going to leave this here for a minute. Okay. Any questions on that so far? That was like the quickie stuff. All right. So the next section here, I want to sort of share with you how you can use Photoshop to do some things that I don't think you can do nearly as well in Lightroom. I can't anyway. I can't make it happen quite as well as I could if I could go into Photoshop. So you can do things like repair something, expand an image, enhance or deal with selective focus on various images. You can fix perspective. You can rescue an image that you thought was a goner. You can play around with color, and you can get creative. So I'm going to step through some of those things with some images here and go through the process of how you open an image in Lightroom, take it over to Photoshop, make some changes, and save it and have it come back over into Lightroom. Okay, I'm going to start with this picture right here. You know that I like to do still life. And I kind of like this. I like the way the light was hitting the flowers, but I was getting a lot of glare on this glass vase. And I just know that the erase tool in Lightroom is not going to be able to take care of that, as well as being able to do something with it in Photoshop. So I'm going to take this image, and there's two ways I can take it over into Photoshop. I can go to the photo menu right here and say edit in, and say edit in Photoshop. Or I can right click on it and say edit in Photoshop. And it's going to open up in a new tab in Photoshop so that I can now work on it in here. Well, there's a couple things that kind of need to happen with this image, but what I'd like to be able to do, by the way, if you're zoomed in and you want to move around, if you just hold the space bar, then you can move and scroll around in the picture however you want to. The edge of this table here kind of needs to be fixed. And I'm not going to worry about that right now because I may end up cropping some of that off or whatever. What I really want to work on here is some of this glare on the glass. So I'm going to try the new generative AI to see if it can remove the glare for me. Now, I should note right here that you can only use generative AI if you're connected to the internet, because it will go up to the cloud to get from the great brain in the sky the information it needs to fix your picture, right? So we're going to see if asking this to remove glare will work. And as anybody who's ever done this knows, it doesn't work the same way every time. So if it worked for me at home, it may not work for me here, and we'll just deal with that. So I'm going to go over here to the lasso tool. By the way, over here on the left, these are all your tools. And when you click on any tool over here on the left, you're going to get various choices at the top. Every tool will have its own set of options up here, but we're in the lasso tool. And I'm going to try, again, I'm zoom. See how easy it is to zoom with the scroll wheel there? Yes. So I'm going to try to sort of select this glare. This is a pretty big thing to select, but I'm going to try it. And now I've got my contextual taskbar, and I'm going to type in here, remove glare. Now, if I have a project where I have to do a lot of that, what I might do, just to save me time, is to copy this, and then I can just paste it in there again the next time. Now I'm going to say generate, and I'm not sure how fast this works here compared to somewhere else, but. And did you notice, by the way, that I've got now another layer for the removing of the glare? And when you ask it to do that, you're going to get 3 options. There's the first one. That's actually pretty good. Here's without it. That's not bad. I don't know, that added more glare in my opinion. And here's another one. So we're going to vote, we go with the first one, right? Okay, the first one. So that's one way you can use this to help you fix this up. Now, if I was going to do a lot of fixing on here, I would be spending a lot of time. You know, I could try another spot. Let me just try one more with remove glare right here. And because I copied it, I can just Control V and paste that command or that suggestion in there. And we'll hope that will remove the glare right there. Ooh, that did a pretty good job. That one. I'm talking about the eye doctor. Number 1 or number 2 or number 3. Oh, not that one. That one. What do you think? Number 2?
I don't know.
I think maybe number 2. All right. So there's one thing we could do. No, there's only 3.
You can refresh.
I know, but that's another, I'm so glad you said that because you get so many generative AI credits per month. I believe it, for me, it's 250. I've been doing a lot of generative AI to get ready for this program. So I'm not going to do a lot of extra ones that we don't need because I don't want to run out. That's one.
Where did you find that information? I didn't realize there was some upper limit to it.
There is. I found that information. If you go down here to your log into your Adobe account, it should log me in because I'm logged in right now. And if you click on your icon right up here, it tells me I've used 195 out of 250 of my monthly generative credits.
Then what happened? They shut you down then? Or-
It says here you can, when you're running credits, continue generating content at no additional cost for a limited time. Click learn more. I'm not going to click learn more right now, but I don't. Do you know what happens, Vince?
Yeah, they're preparing to charge you a fee for the next 50 or 100. They will also set up a fee to get a larger resolution
Yeah, we're going to talk about the resolution.
versus the standard smaller resolution.
Right.
But could I also just throw in that everyone should be aware that for our club competition, you cannot use generative fill AI.
Yes.
So just make sure everyone is aware.
Yeah, I was going to say that multiple times. Multiple times. Yes, you're not using generative fill. However, you can erase things in the but not in nature. Correct?
You can, yes.
I mean, in nature, you could remove something like a sensor spot from the sky or whatever, but you can't go in and,
Take the person away.
yes, you can't do that.
Can they hear Vince?
Could you guys hear Vince there, Jay?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Were you able to hear what Vince was saying about your generative credits?
I heard that, yes.
Okay, great. Excellent.
But yeah, that's a confusing issue to me yet, but that's another story.
Right. So in our competitions, you're not using anything that you have where you have used a generative AI.
If you do a quick compare with the reading tool to see how that does relative.
So here,
Yeah.
you're talking about the spot removal tool? Yes, good idea. Excellent idea, because I was going to show you one more way too.
No credit there.
What's that?
No credit consumption. Not
No credit consumption.
Right.
You use no credit consumption. So let's try what Rick recommended was let's go into this spot right here and try just using the spot removal tool. Now, if I tried that right now at this very moment, as things are, it would not work. Why?
You're not on the right.
I'm not on the right layer. Do you see the layer that I'm on is the remove glare 2 layer. And that layer only includes that little tiny thing. So I must go back down to my background layer. But if I use this spot removal tool on the background layer itself, I'm actually changing the pixels on the background layer, right?
Okay.
So I could make a copy of that layer, keeping the background layer the same. I think I can use a blank layer with the spot removal tool, right? Not with spot removal? With cloning, though. I will do it with cloning because we're going to do it this way. So I'm going to use it on a copy of the background, and I'm just going to see if I can get rid of that little spot. It's not bad. Sometimes you have to do it a few times, but I am not using any of their stinking AI credits, right? Okay, I can do that. All right, now that gets a little bit funny there. I'm going to undo. Now, let me show you something else we can do. We can also use cloning. And I usually do my cloning on a blank layer. And again, all of these have a little bit of something on. I'm going to add a blank layer, which is this thing right next to the trash can. And I'm going to pick my cloning tool, which is a thing that looks like a little bit of a rubber stamp type thing. And then I'm going to look it up here, and I'm going to say, where am I getting my information from? And right now it says current layer. Well, if I'm going on the, what in heaven's name is that? Why is that?
Right.
Oh,
Somebody else.
someone was using this that was not me. Okay. All right. So I am going to get back to my clone tool, but no, when I changed that, I'm still doing the oval. Bob, why is it an oval?
Is there more than one tool there?
Right click, right.
Oh. No, but now I'm in the brush. Why did it change me to the brush?
Back there. Right click.
Right click on this.
No. Click on your screen.
Okay.
There's two different things there,
I
right?
see where it says it's flat, just straighten it out.
Where does it say flattened?
Yeah. See the little oval?
This?
There you go. Pull it out. Pull it out.
I'm still in the clone. Oh, wow.
When you click.
Wait, who is using that weird? Angel, have you been in here using a weird clone thing? All right, again, notice. Hit enter. Thank you. Okay, again, just like I did with the other brush, I can hold the Alt and Option, the Control and Alt and zoom in and out. So I need to not just sample from the current blank layer, I need to sample from the layers beneath. So I can either say sample current and below or sample all layers. I'm going to go with current and below. And let's see if we can get rid of that.
Does it mean everything below or just the immediate layer below?
Everything.
Whatever you're seeing.
All the layers that are visible below. So now I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to sample right here. What? I'm sorry, I'm holding down the Alt or Option key and clicking where I want to sample from. And I'm sampling from here because I see that this is a nice straight line, and I'm going to use that to come down into here. So I'm going to sample from here, and I'm going to take what's there and put it down here. Now
Jenny,
this
earlier
is,
You mentioned tips. Isn't there a thing where you do this here where it'll tell you to hold the Alt key and click your source?
that might have been in the rich tooltips, which I turned off.
That's what I'm saying. So people that aren't as familiar with.
Right, they can leave the rich tooltip on if they want
It'll
to.
tell you commands of what to use and
It will.
how to use.
So you can go through here and clone things. If it's coming out a little bit too strong, like it did right there, you can also go up here to your top layer, and you have the option to change the flow as you copy what you sampled onto the other part. So I like to maybe put that way down to maybe 30%. And flow means as you paint it on, you're getting a little bit, and then you can keep adding it on as you want to. That's the flow of it, right? So now I'm going to hold down Alt or Option and click up here and come down and just try to paint over it just subtly. And there's a slightly different color here. And anyway, we're getting there. We're getting there, right?
Which you'll only see if you're pixel peeping.
Right. But this needs a lot more work to clean up what's on here, the more distracting things. Like we could probably go back here to this background copy, Rick, and try using the spot removal tool on here. Why is this saying all this information? Spot removal tool might work well for that. Okay. Let me go back and see it. Now, if we want to see what it looked like before and after, we can again hold that Alt or Option and click down here and then back. You can see the difference that it made to bring it in here, right? So once you're done in Photoshop, you want to simply say save.
Ginny,
Yes.
it might be worth mentioning that when you start creating all that generative fill, you may either want to merge those or get rid of the options, because that all saves into the file and affects your file size.
Good point. Okay, so what he's saying is, since we did not use variation 1 or 3, we could just get rid of them. That way you're not saving that information and making your file bigger. I don't usually flatten my images because sometimes I've done that and then I was sorry because I wanted to go back and change the layers. But that's a great idea to go in and take away the variations that you did not use. Just hitting that little trash can gets rid of those.
You bring it back into Lightroom, is it a PSD file?
No, I told it to do a TIFF.
Or whichever one you chose.
Yes, so I'll show you how that happens. So now if I say save, I was in Lightroom when I opened it here, and it's gonna pop that over here into Lightroom. If you look down here at the film strip, he says I have to go to library first and go back to develop. Here it is. And if you look at what it is up here, it's a TIFF. By the way, this information up here, you can make that show or not show by using the I key on your keyboard. So it can either show this information number 1, information number 2, or no information at all. And you can customize that too.
One other thing, I've had some difficulty before as far as the film strip at the bottom, or even on, the G, the regular view. That if you have it sorted by name, sometimes it puts it all the way at the end somewhere.
Every now and then when you save something, it puts it at the end instead of next to the one. I happen to
It's under the custom order.
custom order, and so it's kind of doing what I want to right
I
now.
believe, and then it uses the first part of the name.
Mhm.
Puts it in the-
Okay, one more where we're gonna do a little bit of cloning is this picture of my father-in-law. This was last November when he turned 99. This November, he's turning 100. And he was hoping that maybe he could go viral if I used his picture tonight. So, but this is not a great picture. This is not a good portrait. I admit that. I took this picture at the party. He happened to be looking up. He got the reflection in his eye, in his glasses of the lights on the ceiling. It would be very hard to use the eraser tool in Lightroom to get rid of that. So here's a good photo where we could say edit in Photoshop. And we could try to remove glare. That would be one thing we could do in here. It does work a little bit over here. I've tried it. It's not great, and who knows what it'll do today here, but I'm going to try removing glare. Let's see if it remembered that command. Oh, look at that. But I want to show you one other quick thing in here before I move to the next. All right, that's not horrible. It's a little creepy. They added a lot of eyebrows there.
Room sweeper.
One thing you can do is you could make a blank layer and you could go over to this eye and use your clone tool. I'm sorry, thank you. Use your clone tool. I don't want to brush on here. And you could click right in the pupil, holding down your Alt key, and then you could come over here and clone. Oops, I'm on a 30% flow here. Let me go to 100%. You could clone that eye over here. And I'd probably leave those little catch lights in there. I'd still have to get rid of this and so forth. But a little at a time, this is something you could not really fix over there in Lightroom. You really need to come into Photoshop to fix something like that. This you might be able to fix in Lightroom. And once you're done, you could save this, which I didn't really finish. So I'm just going to close it and not save the changes on that one.
Jenny, can I make a comment?
Yes.
For the generative fill, it often is better to go a little wider with your lasso or selection.
Yes.
So that the computer has the ability to see what it's supposed to be substituting as normal, and it will read normal versus what it assumes you want to get rid of. So rather than do a real tight selection, you might get a better result by going into some normal, like maybe some glass frame.
I wasn't sure if that would work, but it would be maybe worth a try.
Well, I've noticed that it creates a layer mask every time.
It does. It creates.
On a larger area already.
It is, but he's saying when you select it, it should be looking to see what's it trying to do. Now, in something like that, I think I tried it with the bigger thing and it wasn't doing any better. It was doing actually worse, but okay, let's move on to.
How did you get that contextual little thing to come up?
How do I get it to come up?
Yeah, yeah, with the little box you typed in, remove glare.
Yes, the contextual, oh, here, what happened? The contextual tool, this right here,
Yeah, yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
that I have that. I mean, I know
That's-
that I must have it in my system, but I never use it.
your window menu and go all the way down, contextual taskbar is almost,
Okay. Thank you.
Right. welcome. Fabulous. Okay, so let's go back over here. Again, this is not something you could ever do for a competition. All right, what I'm about to show you. Let me make that perfectly clear. But I was out trying to shoot the hummingbird. Now I am using nothing special here. I'm not using a flash. I'm just the hummingbird's in my garden and I'm trying to take its picture. It refuses to go to the middle of the frame. I'm hand holding a 200 millimeter lens and trying to catch this hummingbird. So it's up here at the top on this salvia. I'd make a few basic corrections here, and this is not how I would finish this. Okay, I'm just showing you what I could do. I might do this. I might open up some shadows a little bit, get that hummingbird there. I can see I have some cropped, some highlights. All of this would be fine in the competition. But what I'm about to do next is a big no-no. I'm going to go ahead and take this photo and edit it in Photoshop, just like I've been doing with everything else.
He still hasn't asked you that question.
No, I know. I don't understand that, but we're not going to worry about that today. Okay, so let's say that what I really want here is I want to crop this to a square. I want a square because I'm going to put it in Instagram, or I want a square because I'm going to print it on a little 6x6 canvas. And I want it to be a square because all the other birds that I printed are squares, whatever. So I'm going to go over here on the left-hand side to the crop tool. When I'm in the crop tool, I've got some options over here, and up here under ratio, I'm going to say 1:1 square. Okay. Now, if I were to simply crop this to a square, Mr. Hummingbird is going to be way up at the top of the square, and if I get it printed, he'll probably get, damaged or whatever. Oopsie, I didn't mean to do that. Not yet. Okay. So now I have to make another decision right up here. And I can either do a background, so a color, or I can do a generative expand, or I can do a content aware fill. So let's start trying with a content aware fill. That's been around a long time. You probably can't use that for the competition. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to bring this in here. I'm going to do it there. And then I'm going to bring this up so that my bird is sort of at that intersection right there on the 3x3. Once I think I have the shape that I want, I'm going to click this little check mark up here, or I could just click outside here, and you can see that something's happening. So it's doing something, but content aware fill is not really doing it, right? It's not matching up. It's not the greatest. You can keep trying it, but we're going to use one of my credits. How many am I down to now? I'm going to do a Control-Z, a Control-0 to get back to fill the screen. Did I tell you that fill the screen command? Oh, okay. So let's say I zoomed in, or I zoomed like this, and I wanted to go back to fill the screen. Command or Control-0, I'm sorry, Alt or Option 0. Nope, I was right the first time. Command or Control-0, fill it to the screen. Command or Control-1,
It's 100.
100%. I use that constantly. All right, let's go back to our crop tool here. Let's go back to the square. This mouse. Why is it not showing me the crop tool? And we'll go back to this. Make it a little bigger. But this time we're going to say generative expand. And let's see what AI up in the cloud will do with this. Oh,
Not bad.
I'm hitting F8 to get it. So what do you think? That looks pretty realistic. You can see a line. So you're going to have to work on it. This is the next one. They actually added another little flower. And here's the last one. And then you could hit generate again if you want to and get 3 more. Now, if you zoom right in, you're going to notice that this is different. If you're a pixel people, right? This is not the same resolution as the original. So you really do have to be careful when you choose to use the generative expand. They're working on a situation where you can pay more to get the higher resolution and so forth and so on. This is just a tips and tricks, showing you how you can do it. If you're going to print that as a 6x6, I think you could probably do it and it's going to look okay.
You see the dark line, the barrier there?
Yeah.
If you use your healing brush.
Well, what you would need to do would be to merge these 2 layers and then begin working on that. Depending on how important it is to get it right. At this point, I'm just showing it to you, but you could take these 2 layers and you could flatten that image, and then you could go in and use your cloning or whatever and try to smooth out that barrier, okay?
Is there any information and metadata that identifies that you used AI on any photo?
Vince?
Yes, if you now submit to Instagram, it will automatically tag that as AI generated. And there are now multiple software programs that maybe the competition would have that would identify a AI generation use.
Mhm.
Yes, it's definitely out there.
It's out there. I mean, you're making that kind of a change, so you're going to have it. Okay.
One thing with the generative fill and expand would be to do it in segments instead of one big swipe.
Exactly.
Because now each segment will have that smaller resolution.
Yeah, the resolution.
A better resolution than doing one giant area.
I did write that down, what the resolution, it's 1024 pixels on the longest edge, yeah.
Right, so you small ones, you won't, it won't show as much.
Right, exactly. I'm just gonna close that and not save those changes for now. All right, so let me talk about how you can use selective focus. Now, some cameras do focus stacking. And so you set your camera on a tripod and you put it in front of something like a bug or something else, and you tell it how many pictures you want to take and what the starting point is. And it keeps taking pictures, and it takes pictures at various focal lengths until it's at the bottom, which I think, Vince, you did some of that on your presentation. You can do a simpler version of sort of a focus stacking, or what I would call selective focus, which is what I did in this picture, these 3 pictures here, which are this, I know it looks like an apple, but it really was a plum.
Really?
It was a red plum.
Wow.
Yeah. So you'll notice in this first picture of the plum that the stem is what's in the best focus. But if you look over here, the bowl of the spoon is not. In the second picture, am I in the second picture? The bowl of the spoon is what's in focus. And in the third picture, the handle is in focus. So all I did was I was in my kitchen taking this picture with my camera on the tripod, and I simply chose 3 different focal points. I could have done more. This is simply simplifying this for you. So 3 different focal points. So I'm going to select all 3 of these images, and again, go to Photo, Edit In. But I'm going to say open as layers in Photoshop. So it's going to take these 3 images and it's going to open them in Photoshop already as 3 separate layers. Sorry about that crop tool, that's annoying. You have something over there?
You hit a Del key.
Apparently I hit Adele. Okay, so on this image, this is a chance for me to teach you a little bit about a layer mask. Okay, so on this image, the part that's in the best focus is this part right here, right? So I'm going to add a, let me think, Virginia. I'm gonna add a mask. Thank you. I'm gonna add a mask. Add a mask. And what I want to do is I want to reveal beneath this part that is not in nice focus. The mask is white, meaning it's showing the entire layer that I'm on, but I want to take away some of that layer and show the nice sharp focus in the spoon. So I am going to go over here to the brush tool, and I want to make sure that my brush is black. So if I look down at this bottom left to this color picker, right now white is in the front. If I click this little arrow, black will be in the front. And now my brush is going to be black.
The shortcuts are D and X. D is the default, and X switches.
So if I wanted to switch, I could switch it to X, whatever. I'm on the mask. I'm not on the picture. I'm on the mask. And I'm going to take my brush in black and I'm going to reveal. Oh, I forgot one very important step. Well, I'm just going to reveal this right now, but you'll see what step I forgot. First step I should have done was I should have selected all 3 layers and gone to my edit menu and said auto align layers. And here's why. As I scroll down through these layers, this is, I'm gonna have, this is the first layer, the layer that has the spoon handle in focus. When I do this, see how it actually is sort of a little bit different, because as you focus on something different, it's going to change it. And that one. So I'm going to take these 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and say edit, auto align, and just go with the auto one right here. And it'll do a little work. And you notice around the edges, you can see a little bit of transparency because things got moved just a tad. All right, sorry about that. Returning to your regularly scheduled program. Oh, it's only 6 minutes till kickoff. All right, so stay here.
Pull your phones out.
Oh, don't pull your phone. Who cares about the Jets and the 49ers? Okay.
San Francisco.
So I'm going to do that here. And I am going to now put a mask on this one. I'm going to actually shut this off for a minute so that I can just see this one. I'm going to add a mask to that middle one. And there are multiple ways you can do this, all right? Like I said, more than one way. But I want to reveal this spoon down here that's on this layer. So I'm going to keep my black brush, and I'm just going to reveal that more.
So you're hiding the blurry.
I'm hiding the blur and I'm revealing what's underneath. Correct. And now I'm going to have to put this one back on, and I'm going to do the same thing on this layer. And so what I basically did was combine these 3 so that the various things are in focus.
Yeah, there's a on the X.
There is, I'm showing you how to do it on your own,
Okay.
to be in charge.
This is how masks work.
I'm lazy.
And it also will show you the mask. You can tell it to,
Get to the game.
I'm lazy.
I forget what it is right now.
Image blend, about two down from image align.
Oh, an edit? Where are you? Oh, you have to have multiple images selected. Yeah, you have to have multiple, auto blend layers, and then you can do it by focus. But I personally like to have control over what's being shown. Plus, I wanted to show you how masks work. Good question, though. There are cameras today, actually the latest version of the Olympus camera will do all of that focus stacking and make you the new blended, combined image right in camera. And give it to you as a JPEG as well as all the layers. I mean, you could end up with many, many layers. I don't want all those layers. The way this turned out was fine with me, just like this.
You don't
Hey,
do a lot
Ginny,
to do that work for you.
I don't have that latest version of the Olympus. Yes, Jay.
how do you know what order to bring the layers into Photoshop?
Um,
And why start in Lightroom and then import to Photoshop?
well, because that's where I always start. That's where all my pictures start in Lightroom, pretty much.
Okay,
It's brightness and.
And then you can change the order once you're in Photoshop. You could change. I'm not going to do it now because of what I did with the masking, but you could change the layers around by just dragging them. And like I said, you could have done this in multiple ways. I just chose to do it in this particular order. Good question, though. Now, again, if I say save, I don't have to say save as or anything. If I just say save, that's going to show up back in here, and you can see it's highlighted. And it's in between all of these, right? And you can see that this is the one that's been modified because it says TIFF. And now I can, here in Lightroom, I can go ahead and crop away that extra, the extra
Overhang.
transparency that was there. I do often start by cropping my pictures in Photoshop, straightening in Lightroom, straightening and cropping. But if I feel like I'm going to take it into Photoshop, I try to hold off on that until I'm done in Photoshop and bring it back to Lightroom, because I might be sorry that I cropped away some pixels and you can't get them back. Once you've cropped away something and taken it into Photoshop at half the size of what it was originally, once you get it back to Lightroom, that's done. Those pixels are gone and you can't do anything else with it. So
You start over again.
yeah, you could start over, but I mean,
Generative expand.
you did all that work. Yes,
If you edit that again in Photoshop, you get the layers, right?
yeah. If I open this TIFF again in Photoshop, those layers will be there. That's correct. But the layers are not here in Lightroom.
You open as original. If
Yeah.
you open as a copy or as a whatever.
It's been
That's
squished.
what I want to see. Go ahead and edit in Photoshop again and see if you get the.
Oh,
Right click on it.
well, I haven't, maybe I did make a change. Oh, all right, fine, whatever.
So you do not have to select all three of those layers again to go back into Photoshop?
There are no layers. Oh, this is now the TIFF. Now this is the TIFF now. Now if I say edit in Photoshop, it's going to ask me, do you want to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments? Do you want to edit just a copy without the Lightroom adjustments, or do you want to edit the original, meaning the original TIFF that had the layers? If I say I want to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, it's going to be the flattened version. Yes? Okay, thanks for asking that
So
question.
the original, it just means. that
The
you
original TIFF.
Saved it as a TIFF. And
Correct.
then put it back into Lightroom.
Now, if I now export this out of Lightroom as a JPEG with whatever types of presets I have set up or whatever I want to do, then, you know, it's a JPEG and that's what it is. And you can't do anything else with that JPEG. All right. Let's do a quick perspective thing here. I still have some time. Boy, time is getting away from me. Why do I keep opening that? It's System House. All right, now that I've saved this, I can close it and it's been saved. Let's go back to this old door that I took in 2012. Came across it and I thought this might be a good one to sort of show how you can fix perspective, because it's crooked, right? It's kind of skewed. Bothers me. So I'm going to take this old picture from 2012 and I'm going to try to straighten this up using the perspective warp. So I'm going to go into the edit menu and I'm going to pick perspective warp. And there's two things up here at the top. There's the look, there's a little tooltip. There's a layout and there's warp. Starting on layout, and I'm going to click at the top corner of this door. And I get this little rectangle here. What I'm trying to find here are things that I'm going to want to have be straight. Okay. That was a bad choice because I can't see the other corner of that. So let me try this. I'm going to try this right here. I'm going to try this line right here and take this down to the bottom of that line and take this down to the bottom of here. Okay. So now I've got my layout. Now I'm going to click where it says warp. Not Worf, not the guy on Star Trek. Warp. Like the speed you go when you're getting away from the bad guys. Yes. So now I'm going to simply take these corners and I want to make this more straight. If I want to see if it's getting straight or not, because I cannot trust my own eyes, because you look at all my pictures, something's crooked when I took the picture. I want to see a little grid. So I can go to my view menu and say grid. I thought I could. Oh, show grid. Or I can use control and the apostrophe to make the grid show up. Now I can look in here and kind of see, am I lining this up with the grid line? Over here. And you can change the size of the grid, by the way, and I didn't do that on here, but kind of move it until it's right. And you're going to see here that I do have some transparency showing, because when you change the perspective, you're going to lose something. But once you think you have it right, you want to click this little check, or you can click out here or in here rather. Nope, you got to click the check. And I'm going to get rid of the grid. And now it's considerably straighter. At this point, I could go ahead. Oh, well, let's go to original. I could go ahead and just crop off that if I wanted to. It depends on what's most important about this at this point. If I just want to go to whatever I want to do. Why is it 1:1? Clear that. If you clear that, then you have control over it. If you're not printing this, it doesn't really matter what your ratio is. I want to generate. Why did it do that? I don't want to generate anything. Okay. Now, while we're here, one other type of adjustment, one other type of layer you can use is called an adjustment layer. And we are going to be running, oh, we're good. We have enough time. The adjustment layer puts a layer on top of your image without actually changing your image, but it makes an adjustment to the image. In this particular case, I wanted this to be much less saturated. I wanted it to look a lot more, almost like a black and white, almost like a pencil drawing or something. So I'm going to go down here to this little thing at the bottom that looks like a chocolate and vanilla cookie. An Oreo that you took off 1/2 of the top. And I can pick what type of adjustment I want to make to this image. I'd like to make a hue and saturation adjustment. And there's a lot of things in this properties panel that pops up when I pick that adjustment. What I simply want to do is I just want to reduce the saturation till it gets to sort of the look that I'm going for. I have not changed my original image. I simply added an adjustment to it. I could also go in here and do another one. I could do a levels adjustment. And again, it would take, Bob could probably talk about levels adjustments for 15, 20 minutes. But let's say I want to make more of the pixels that are on the black end a little bit darker. So I'm going to take this thing right here and drag it over, take my middle one, and sometimes it's just a matter of tweaking things till they look the way you want them to look. So this is without that adjustment, and that's with the adjustment. It's minor, but you're not going into this image itself and going to the image and making the adjustments here, because once you do that, it's done. It's been done to the image. If you do it on a layer, you can always get rid of it or turn that layer off. If I turn a layer off and I save it, it saves it the way it looked with that layer turned off. That layer is still there if I come back and open it up again as a TIFF or a PSD, whichever way I saved it. But I'm saving it the way it was looking when I saved it. Any questions about that? When I save it, it should, oh, because this was a JPEG, and I did not open this from Lightroom, it's not going to save back into Lightroom. You might remember I opened this at the very beginning, and I just simply opened it. And since it was a JPEG, it opened just fine in Photoshop. If it had been a RAW file, and I was in Photoshop and I said open, it would not open in Photoshop. It would open in Camera Raw. Camera Raw is what Photoshop uses to deal with RAW files like ORFs or CR2s or whatever the Nikon one is. So it would open in Camera Raw first, and then I would have to say, okay, and then it would open it in Photoshop. However, if you go from Lightroom to Photoshop and back, it works seamlessly that way. I'm not going to bother saving this right now. What's that?
I think Nikon's G, I'm not sure though.
Nikon photos?
NEF.
Yeah.
NEF, oh, NEF, right. Okay, so that's how you can fix the perspective on something. You do need to be aware that if you're going to fix that perspective, sometimes you really lose a lot of what was in your picture. Then if you use generative fill, you can't use it in the contest. So be careful.
However, the contest would advise when you know you're going to need to do perspective control with your wide angle lens to get a lot of extra.
Get a lot of extra, and sometimes
Your perspective correction, you can now discard image that you don't need.
precisely, and that's exactly what I was going to talk about with. Is that the next one?
You use
No.
the transform in Lightroom?
I'm going to show you that too. Yeah. So let me go back in the Lightroom. I'll do that now since that's a similar thing. So here's an example where I did not shoot a lot of extra. I was zooming around and I shot this picture of this window. Now I've shot many windows at Hopewell Furnace, and I liked the way this came out, except for a lot of things that I didn't like. So first of all, it's way too dark. So we all know that if we increase the exposure, we're also going to be adding noise, but I'm going to do that right now just for fun. Then when you do that, you realize, oh my goodness, there is a really dark shadow from some overhang that is now ruining the corner. And there is absolutely nothing I can do to get that back in Lightroom. However, I can straighten this up a little bit. I can go down here to my transform tool in Lightroom. And I can use these, let me go back out of that, these little upright, I don't know what they're called. It's the guided upright tool. Thank you to tooltips. And I can draw a line down the two straight sides of this window. Ta-da! Look how beautifully straight it is. Now, did that solve my problem with the dark shadow? It did not. It did not solve that problem. I could say, oh, I know, I can use a, thank you very much. I can use a linear gradient. I can use that. I can drag down here and I can just lighten that up. No, I can't. There's nothing there, right? There's no good way to fix this in this particular right now. There's nothing. So let's just discard the mask. Okay. So what I would do with this one, well, what I really will do is go back and reshoot this image, right? But I want to show you a way that I actually did fix this in Photoshop, which was, I was actually pretty pleased with the solution. I'm going to open this in Photoshop. And I am going to get a nice little rectangle tool. And I am going to make it's just like patching your drywall in your house. So I'm going to go ahead and make a selection. Then I Control C, then I Control V, and where am I pasting the new thing?
What's a new layer?
Now I'm on this layer, And I want to be able to transfer, I want to be able to move that, get control of it. So I'm going to use Control T, which is the transform tool. And now I can grab it. And I can just move it right up there. I can make sure it's lined up. If it's not quite lined up, I can use the arrow keys to nudge it over. Look at that. Okay. Now you say, but Ginny, that looks terrible. Look how light it is. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. I asked him to do that. Well, it's terrible. So basically what I would do now, you can combine these two layers, or you can make a new layer that takes both of these, or this will work with however many layers you have, and makes a new layer with everything from the other layers. So I'm going to do that. They call it the claw. You use Command or Control, Alt or Option, Shift, and E. And you get another layer above the other layers that contains everything that was visible in the other layers. All right. So now I'm on this layer. And now I can go ahead in to maybe my clone tree. I'm going to put a lower flow on this. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here with you all, but make a nice soft brush. I'm going to sample maybe from down here and just start, get that lined up, just start going up here and blend that in.
We can.
What are you guys talking about back there?
Contest.
You could use that increase.
You're breaking the rules.
I did not make a promise that I was not going to break the rules.
No, you're teaching Photoshop, not contest.
Exactly. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
You could go in here and this needs a lot of work. So this is not right up here at the top and so forth and so on. But there are things, like I said, that you could do that could save this. Now talk about saving something. I'm not going to save that. There's this picture. Why did I even take that picture, right? The sun was coming up, the mist was on the lake. You can see them, well, you probably can't tell there's mist on the lake. There's mist on the lake. I basically just zoomed way in so I could figure out what kind of bird is that? I just wanted to see what kind of bird it was. So I brought it back into my Lightroom and I said, I don't know, like what would happen if I just increased the exposure? Ooh, oh, look at that. It's a heron. It's a green heron, actually. Now, when you increase the exposure like that, you're going to increase the noise, obviously. At this point, I'm not caring too much about the noise. I just kind of like this. I might go in here that's not my... I might go in here and do a little luminance smoothing. Now, what I'm about to do next, don't ever do this if you're entering a contest, unless it's one of those ones where it's an anything goes, because then you're using your creativity and you're allowed to do this, right? So
Read the rules.
I am going to go ahead and take this photo and I'm going to edit this in Photoshop, because the one thing that bothers me about this is there's no separation between the heron and the top branch. His beak is intersecting with the top branch, and that bothers me. Because I would like there to be some separation. I think it would be a better composition. So I'm going to go over here on this tool and choose the object selection tool. This is similar. What was that, Bob?
It's trying to do it automatically.
I'm going to draw a rectangle around my heron. Wait a moment, and he's selected. Okay, now I'm going to, oh my golly, okay. I'm going to go to my edit menu. I'm going to go to transform, and I'm going to pick skew. This allows me to take my heron.
He's gave a neck ache.
And sort of reshape him a little bit.
It's no longer a North American green heron.
And I'm going to control D and deselect. And I don't know why what is happening with that? Oh, go away.
It's object select, it's trying to.
Okay, so I'm moving my heron. Now he's left a little bit of a ghost of himself. So here, I did this all on this particular, all on one layer here. So this would be a good time for me to use just my regular, what's it called?
The healing brush?
Spot healing brush. And just get rid of that. I could use a clone tool too, probably. I don't know what that
His
is.
mate's not gonna recognize him.
I'm going to actually switch to the clone here. Whoa, whoa. Make it hard. Just sort of straighten things up here. Oh. And then I have to fix the branch. This is on flow of 43%. That's the problem. If ever something's not working, check up at the top to see if maybe your flow is wrong or something else is different. Something's funky up there. That's another one of my tips and tricks.
That's Angel might have used.
Maybe Angel used it. And then I'm just going to fix this branch. I'm going to actually sample from down here.
That's right, you gotta grow the tree.
You gotta fix where the beak was.
It's great. It's great.
Good job.
I like it better.
Yeah.
Because the heron is not intersecting with the tree. I would call this digital art. It's taking the photograph just a little step farther. And I would then save this back into Lightroom. And once I'm back in Lightroom, I can decide, what else I want to do to it. Do I want to maybe add some texture or personally on this one, I like it better cropping it as more of a pano. So a little bit more like that. I don't want to lose this branch here, but maybe something like that.
Looks like watercolor. That's great.
That's the look I was going for. Yeah. Maybe fiddle around with some things. And again, you're going to play with this until it looks right to you. And also it looks different on here than it does up here. This is a little bit of a lighter monitor, but you get the idea. It is a little washed out, but it's much more washed out up there. But I was going for a very, once I pulled that exposure up and saw what it looked like, I thought this would kind of look well as a sort of a high key kind of pastel look. Yeah, so that's what I went for with that one. So there's a way to sort of rescue something that you thought was a goner and turn it into something that you might actually like. Let me go to an image here that was taken at our trip over to Glenafton Cathedral and Glencairn. And I'm going to do some more work with.
You up on the roof?
Yes. We were up in a place where we were allowed, up on some sort of tower looking down. I loved this umbrella here, this umbrella person. I did not like the minivan. I did not like this so much. I'm not going to do it right now, but when my original, I actually did remove this. I used a generative remove to get rid of this rusty thing that was in my way. I couldn't lean out the window any further without having, Vince have to grab my legs and pull me back in. So, but I decided I would go ahead and try to remove the van here. I'm just going to use a lasso tool and get around the van. I think that's enough to choose from. We'll see. I'm going to get my F8. There's my, and I'm just going to say remove van. Remove van. Let's see what happens. Now, this is not going to be perfect, and I would probably go ahead and
Ka-ching.
that's actually pretty good. All right, let's just stop there for that one. Now, what would make this even better? Obviously, like I said, I would do some generative fill over here or just crop this. I really want that to be a red umbrella. I really do. I really do. So I'm going to go in here to my object selection tool again. Everything's going to turn pink. And I'm going to just draw a box around the umbrella. You know what? I'm on the remove van layer. Doggone it. Let me Control D. Got to make sure I'm on the background layer. Draw a rectangle around the umbrella. If I hold Alt and it is not wanting to find it. Okay, here we go. So I have the umbrella, right? All right, since I already have a selection, if I now pick the adjustment layer for hue and saturation, it's going to create a mask. And if you look at that, see how it looks like it's black, but there is a little white dot. It's only going to affect the thing that I selected before I picked that adjustment tool. And now I can go in here and I can actually check this box that says colorize, and I can change the color of that umbrella to whatever I want. That looks good. And now I have a red umbrella instead of a black umbrella and a van. Just like that. Okay. One other color.
Ginnie, I use that for product shoot. I only had to shoot one box. And then because it comes in 10 different colors, I just added adjustment layer.
Perfect.
So I didn't have to reshoot the different boxes just once.
I used it also. I had a tiny little, I was doing a still life that included all things that were blue. I had flowers. I had a blue bottle with some blue flowers in it. And I had a tiny little basket with blueberries. But the little stripes on the basket were red. And so I used this technique to go in and change them, selected them and changed them to blue. Okay, another, I'm not going to save that right now. You go back over here and open these cookies. Don't get hungry now. So this is telling me to edit a copy with lighting adjustments because it's a JPEG, but I can just say edit the original. So the problem with these cookies is there's a color cast to these cookies. How do I turn this crazy?
Yeah.
I'll have to be out of that tool. There's a color cast on these cookies because they're lighting in the room or whatever. If you want to remove a color cast, you can add a levels adjustment. And this middle eyedropper here is the one that is for the neutral colors in the middle. So if I pick this and I click on what I think should be like a neutral gray in my picture, it will take away the color cast. If I don't like that one, I could pick a different neutral gray until I get something that looks right, and then I can save it.
Turn off that tool, you hit the hand icon on the left side that turns off the last tool you use.
But what hand icon?
You may not have it showing if there's, because they're all in triplicate or so.
Yeah, it was just because I was in that object selection. For some reason, this
One
one
way to get rid of whatever your last thing was, if you had the hand up there.
took the hand. Well, I'm not using any tool. I just went to the levels adjustment layer and clicked on this little eyedropper next to the levels and clicked on it, what should be in neutral gray. And that changed that for me.
See what it did to your histogram?
No, I missed that. Sorry, I missed a gram. Let me go to, I have a little bit of time, not much. Okay, I'm going to quickly get to this image with the flowers. And I'm going to just brighten this a little bit. This would be a good example for something you could do on one of those anything goes competitions. This screen down here and lighten that up a little bit. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Take that back. I don't like what that did. Never mind. That was just a random thought and I don't like it. Okay, let's edit this in Photoshop.
Which is Control E,
What's that?
the shortcut control.
Shortcut, there you go. I usually just right click because I'm always using my mouse. And I'm going to open a texture layer that looks like this. And I know there are other ways of getting this on here, but I usually just do a Control A to select the whole thing and a Control C to copy it. And I'm going to go back over here and paste that on top of here. I'm going to stretch it so that it covers this. And there we go. Isn't that beautiful?
That's better.
Okay. So what I can now do is take this layer and I can change the blending mode, which I tried various blending modes for this to see what I liked. And I actually preferred leaving it on normal and just going here to where it says opacity and making it a little bit clear. A little bit. Now, what I want to do now is put a mask on here. Using my brush, the black brush, I'm going to actually, in a very low flow, I'm going to actually reveal some of this plant so that it is not completely covered. And this is completely artistically chosen by you.
This technique works really well if you put textures on top of faces and you want to just have the texture on the.
Yes, you don't want the texture on the face. But what I want to show you here, okay, so there we go. Let's say that I'm running out of time, so whoops. Again, I'm going to crop this once I get it back. So I'm going to turn that off for a minute and open another texture, which is this purple one. And plop that. Remember, this texture is still here. I thought I copied that. Oh, thank you. Yes.
You need the purple cast in it or just?
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see what we're going to do here. Every time I do it a little different. So I'm going to try this one. What did I try? Multiply. Let's try multiply. And tell me, Bob, what does multiply do? It takes a color that's already there and adds to it or something. I try a couple different ones again. So, but what I want to show you here is that, let's say I kind of like how that looks. I'm going to make the opacity a little bit more so you can see. What I want to show you here is I did all the work down here to create this mask. If I hold down my Alt or Option key and drag this mask up here, well, I dragged the whole layer. That's not what I meant to do. It takes that same mask that I didn't spend a lot of time on, but let's say I did a lot of time on, and it can apply it to the other one, the other layer. Alt or Option, whichever, Alt on the Windows and Option on a Mac. And so you do a lot of work creating a mask, and then you can just simply drag that mask to another layer and use it again. At this point, if I were to save this into Lightroom, it would save with this purple layer. If I turn this off and save it this way into Lightroom, it's going to save with this layer, right? So if I go back into Lightroom now and save, go back into the file menu and save, come back over here to Lightroom, here it is. And now I can go in and crop it. You should know probably if you're in the crop tool and you're in landscape and you want to switch to portrait, you just click the X and then you can, oops, that should be. You can crop it to however you want. And then you can deal with it from there and then export it as a JPEG.
That's a tip. So if you edit it again in Photoshop, what are you gonna get?
If you edit it again, it depends on whether you edit the original. Because if you go back and edit the original, you would lose whatever you just did right now here. If you said edit in Photoshop and you said edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, and it opens up in Photoshop, it's going to be called probably edit. And well, maybe it does still have the layers.
Should not have.
Well, I came back over into this, but it doesn't really keep the Lightroom adjustments because I cropped it.
So you're editing original.
I'm back here editing the original, yeah. We're not going to solve this tonight. I had one more, but it is 10 of 9, and they like us to be out of here by 9. I'm hoping that maybe you learned a few new little things that you didn't know before. Does anybody have a burning question that anybody there in Zoom land or?
Do you do anything with sky replacement?
No, I don't believe in that.
You don't like that?
That's what one of my daughters says sometimes about something ridiculous. Oh, I don't believe in that. No, I don't. I haven't ever really done anything with sky replacement. I know you can.
Well, the reason I ask is because I find myself sometimes shooting on overcast days to eliminate the harsh shadows that you get on a bright sunny day. And then you have crappy looking sky.
Yeah.
And so then I go out and find a relatively mild sky, if you will, to put into to get rid of that gray.
I'm gonna grab the.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a couple questions and
Questions in the chat.
drag the chat over. So you
All right, he's dragging the chat over.
there you go.
I don't see any questions.
Someone said, how do you know what order to bring the layers? We tried that, we answered that question. Well, I start in Lightroom and then import to Photoshop.
You mentioned that cameras automatically do the focus stacking or focus shifting. My Nikon Z6, I always focus on the closest thing, even actually closer than the closest object.
Tell it how many you do it, that's right, yeah.
That's probably a good method of doing the layers as well.
Yeah.
You like
Yeah.
stick it to the back or something.
So why are you starting Lightroom?
That's
It's non-destructive.
both of them are non-destructive. Lightroom is non-destructive, Photoshop is non-destructive, as long as you're using
Just
layers and adjustment layers. So I basically just import my images into Lightroom first. A lot of things can be done just in Lightroom. Vince, if you really use the organizational structure in Lightroom using the catalog, that is one big plus to using Lightroom. That's not the way my brain
they're
works.
simpler. It's a lot of times more
Yeah.
intuitive than Lightroom.
Everything you do in Lightroom doesn't increase the file size.
That points out you're not increasing file size when you make changes in Lightroom. When you do go to Photoshop, you are, and especially if you do a TIFF, TIFFs are very large. I've always opened it as a TIFF in Photoshop, but I'm considering switching to opening it as a Photoshop file in Photoshop.
That layered file, it's going to be double the size every time you added another layer.
Mhm. Now, if you add a blank layer, you're not adding as much as you are adding if you actually double a layer. So, yeah. Any other questions? If not, we're gonna close up for the night. Thank you so much for coming and hope you learned something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks to our visitors. Thanks for Norman.